Hello, and welcome to the APA Bootcamp for 7th edition of the Publication Manual of the American Psychological Association, APA. This is part 2 of a 2-part video series, and this is for the in-text citations and references. Part 1 is about formatting. First of all, I want to introduce you to Ask a Librarian. It is a free service within the state of Florida for you to be able to get assistance from real live librarians. Text, chat, and email are the ways you can do it. Chat is actually my favorite. And basically, it's for you to be able to get assistance, whether it's trying to do research, getting access to a full text of an article, just about anything that you could think of. Also, certificates of completion are available. There will be a brief quiz and a link to it at the end of this video. Then you can go ahead and have that certificate emailed directly to you. Also, you may wish to open another browser window if you want to follow along or try out some of the links as I'm going through things. And of course, keep this window open. Our objectives today will be for you to be able to distinguish between a typical book and journal article reference in APA style, to recognize correctly formatted APA references, and to recall basics of using in-text citations. There is a LibGuide or online resource guide that's available for you, and here is its web address. I'm going to bring it in briefly and just show you where things are at and how you might be able to use that also. So this is the guide itself. You'll see tabs across the top, and these same links down here relate to each of those tabs, so whichever way you prefer to navigate. You'll also want to make certain we are looking at the 7th edition, which was actually published October of 2019, although usually it's referred to as a 2020 edition, and it's the same thing. But make sure with your instructor for each course that you're in, when they require APA, if you're going to be using the 6th edition, the older one, or the new 7th edition. Also, if you've used 6th edition in the past and want to be able to see how things change from the 6th to the 7th, you could take a look at any of these different sites and they'll be able to give you some of the examples and show you what the differences are. This tab here deals mainly with handouts and guides. You'll see there are a lot of different handouts. These are prepared by apa.org, the people who made the publication manual. So you could download them, put them on your computer, print them out, whatever. You'll notice here with the sample papers, several of them are listed here as docs, meaning that they are Microsoft Word documents, so you could actually type over those if you wanted. Again, some additional help right here. They do have some videos and tutorials that they have created, and so you'll want to make sure and check those out. They are adding to them constantly. And there's a site map, so if you'd like to take a look at the entire site and make sure you haven't missed anything, go ahead and visit the site map. This again is for the apa.org site. Here's the information about the video, so here's how to get to that first video and the direct link. We'll be putting this in for the second one that I'm recording right now also. Here's the information about the APA manual itself. We do have a copy of it at the service desk in Boca and Jupiter for you to be able to borrow and use in the library only. And also it's available in the general collection to check out at Harbor Branch. There's also a concise guide to APA style, and that's available again for use in the library at the service desk in Boca. Formatting your paper was covered in the first video of this series. We'll take a look at in-text citations and references, which are the main topics for this video. You'll notice we have basics here. So there are 4 basic elements. We'll be going through those. They're listed here, the sections that they are found in within the APA manual, information about punctuation, more detailed information here, and then also a list of some of the Latin abbreviations and special punctuation that go along with them. Those are always useful. I need to have them readily available because I forget them. You'll notice quick guide is here. This is also listed on the handouts page and also a website from APA on references. Reference guidelines are here. They have over 100 reference examples listed by general topic and then showing more specific examples. You generally can find an example for each type of entry that you would want to use. They divide the types of entries into 4 different groups. I'm going to take a look here, and this will take you directly to that. And these are all of the items that are covered. So textual, cover journal, magazine, and newspaper articles, books, edited book chapter, reports, data sets. We're getting more data sets that we're using on a regular basis. Audio-visual material, you'll see even TED Talks are listed there, and online media, which includes both social media and also web pages and websites. On the left is information about in-text citation, and they also have a specific website on that. And just using the who, what, why, where, when type analogy here, we've got a lot of information there, a lot of easy, quick ways for you to be able to look at stuff without having to go directly to their site. And then at the bottom, there is a list of the hyperlinks for their in-text citations information. This is information for the 6th edition, so if you do need to get to it, that information still exists. There's a secondary page right here with the handouts and the videos from it. And here's more detailed information about Ask a Librarian. Reference list. So let's talk about documenting your sources. It means that you're going to be acknowledging the sources that you've used, what information you've borrowed, meaning what you have not come up with on your own and thought through on your own, and then giving bibliographic information for each source. Oftentimes, you're going to be asked to have citations or in-text citations and references, and so we'll take a look at both of those. First of all, the in-text citation, that's found within the body or the text of the document, and you'll see these in journal articles, and now you're asked to put these into your own writings. It's going to tell readers where the information came from. It's going to be an abbreviated piece of information that will guide people back to the references. In this case, we have according to Southern and Gordon, and so these are our two authors. Here's the date of publication, so if their names appear just as part of the text, immediately after, I have to put in the date in parentheses. In this case, this is a direct quote. I can tell that by the quotation marks, and a direct quote is always followed by a page number, and that so if somebody wanted to go back and look at that quote and see the quote in context in the original writing, they would know exactly where to go to. Let's see how that relates back to a reference. A reference is almost like a street address, and it's going to tell people about the type of source based upon the formatting of the reference, and also where to find that source. Typically, they're going to be listed at the end of the paper. So let's look. Southern, Gordon, so those were the two people, but we'll see in a reference we get additional information besides just their last names. Southern, comma, now we're going to give the first and middle initials with a space between, comma, that tells me we're going on to another person, we're separating this out, and then here's Gordon, comma, and first and middle initial. You'll notice that there's an ampersand that's before Gordon. Anytime that you are doing this and you have the last person that you've got in our reference, then you're going to use that ampersand just before the last author. Here we have the date, again in parentheses, and we're dealing with social sciences, education, sociology, business, library science. All of those will use APA style, and so you'll see that the date of publication is very close to the authors because it is such an important piece of information. People need timely information in these particular fields. Here is the title of the actual article. It's in regular font. Here is the title of the periodical or the journal, and that is in italics. Also in italics is the volume. Following that, in regular font within parentheses, is the issue. And after that, you have the page numbers. One thing that you'll also see here is something called a DOI, Digital Object Identifier. And you could actually put this DOI, one is generated as a unique number or unique information for each journal article, basically done from about year 2000 on, and almost every single journal article will have these. Why is this important? Well, your professor will know that you can put these within a browser and search for this, and you'll get information and sometimes even the full text about this article. Let's start with the basics. Here's a book on Doctor Who, and we're going to look, and the information included in our reference is the author, publication date, the book title, and the publisher. Each of these elements ends with a period. So here's my author, last name, comma, first initial, that's all we have. Because the initial ends with a period, we don't have to have another period at the end of the author element. Publication date, again, in parentheses, period. Book title in italics, period. Publisher, regular font, period. Pretty easy. So now we have it color-coded for you. So if you do well looking at that, you'll be able to see each one of these. And again, it is the book title that is in italics. I think of that as far as How to remember what's in italics? It's what I'm going to pull off the shelf in order to read. So let's say we have two authors for a book. Here we have Rose and Meyer. So it's Rose, comma, DH. So we have a first and middle initial, again, the space, comma. So we're going to separate our two authors. This ampersand tells me that there are only two because this is just before the last author. Last name, comma, we only have a first initial, that's fine. Date in parentheses, period. Again, in italics, the title of the book, and then in regular font, the publisher. Now, if we were going to use an in-text citation for this, we're going to pull the author's last names, Rose and Meyer, and we don't need a comma between these for just two authors, and we're just going to use the ampersand between it, comma, and then the year. A new feature in the 7th edition is that you can have up to 20 authors shown within a reference. It used to be fewer than that. So we're going to look at what you would use if you have between 3 and 20 authors. If you have 21 or more, I'm going to refer you to the APA Manual section 10.1 and look at example number 4. We can see here we have 1, 2, 3 authors. So last, comma, first, middle, comma, last, comma, first, middle, comma, ampersand, there's our last one, last, comma, first, middle. Date in parentheses, period. Again, the book title is in italics, period. And then we have the publisher in regular font, period. This is really nice. It makes life so easy for you. If you have 3 or more authors that are shown in a reference, and you're going to be using an in-text citation, you are going to only show the first author's last name, Gordon, and then use et al. And others. And notice et al. Has a period right here. There's no comma here. Your comma only goes between the date and the author element here. Let's take a look for an edited book that has the book author. So you're looking directly at a book chapter. You know who the author of that chapter is. It says so right by the title of the chapter. And so you're going to have the format of the chapter authors, the year of publication. Looks pretty familiar. This is a little different now. The chapter title in regular font, and then you're going to use this in, and you're going to, instead of inverting the authors, have them in a regular format. Initial, last name, and we only have 2 shown here, ampersand, and then initial last name. And then we're going to show that these are the editors. So this way we are able to see the authors are at the front, and then the editors are going to show up over here. I'll go through this a little bit in more detail. Book title, again, what you're going to pull off the shelf in italics, and we're going to show the chapter pages. Even if we didn't use all of the pages, since you're showing the chapter authors and the chapter title, you need to show the page numbers for that entire chapter. So here's what it looks like. Changra, only first initial, ampersand, now we know there are only 2 authors, and here's our second author, first, middle. Okay, this refers to the chapter title, and then I'm going to see in, that tells me it's going to be a book chapter within a book. I'm using just regular style of writing. My author's information, it's not inverted, so I have first, middle initial, last name, ED. This is always within parentheses, capital E, D, period. If I had more than one editor, it would be EDS, period. Then again, what am I pulling off the shelf? This is the book title. It's in italics. And then these are the page numbers that refer to this particular chapter. So this is a 20 or 21 page chapter, period. And then I have my publisher. My in-text citation, there are only 2 authors, so it will be both of their names with the ampersand between them. The date, you only are going to use a page number if you're referring to a direct quote. And so just keep that in mind. If I did not have the direct quote, I would not be using the page number. Now, just to complicate things, say you have a book and it shows that there are editors rather than the authors, and you see that there may be a list of contributors, but you don't know exactly who wrote which chapter. This is how you're going to do it. This is an interesting one because the last name here begins with a lowercase, and because that's the way the author writes it, that's how you have to write it here. So this is correct to use the lowercase in this particular instance. First, middle, only 2 editors, And so here we have just the first initial. EDS period, it's in parentheses. Now, because we didn't have a period that was ending this, we're going to put a period here that closes out our author element, date element, period. Then we're going to have the title, it's in italics. Then we have the publisher. So our in-text citation is going to take that 2-word author last name, only 2 authors, ampersand, last, and then the date. This would be for a journal, magazine, or newspaper article. The basic format is very similar. Author, publication date, we're doing well, and then we're going to go to the article title, then the journal title. Journal titles in italics, it's what you'd pull off the shelf to get to the actual article, volume, issue, page numbers, and then our DOI. So let's look at this. The author element looks exactly like what we've seen, so does the publication date. The article title, similar to that chapter title, is in a regular font. It ends with a period. The journal title is in italics. Something to keep in mind, article titles are going to be written with an initial capital letter. Everything else is lowercase, with the exception of proper nouns. So in this case, Generation Z is a proper noun. If we had a subtitle with the colon right here, then we would go ahead and capitalize that first letter after it. Here's our journal title, and notice that this is using capital letters for all except for the very small words. So Journal of Nursing Administration. It's italicized, comma, also italicized is the volume. Your issue is in regular font with parentheses, comma, and then pages. So these are the actual page numbers within the journal for this particular article. Here is the digital object identifier. Now, this is something that's new also. If you have a very long digital object identifier, and this is what my original DOI looked like. It's very long and it's stretched about this far down the line. You now can go ahead and create a tiny or a shortened URL, and you could use just about any URL generator that you would like. In this case, I've taken this long one, I put it into tiny URL, and you can see it made it much more compact, much easier to fit this in, and otherwise I'd be on yet another line down here. But instead I just have to use 2 lines, so my references are going to be that much shorter. Another thing to keep in mind is when you're doing each reference, you're also going to be using what's known as a hanging indent. So you're going to have the author flush left, and any remaining lines for that particular reference are going to be indented 1/2 inch. So are you ready to try your skills? Let's do it together. First of all, we're going to be looking at a format for a book. What I'd like to do with you is, by process of elimination, figure out which one is the proper one. So first of all, which one is wrong? Well, let's take a look at A. We know A is wrong because the author's first name is used instead of having the author's initial. This looks okay, except that remember I just mentioned about having the title so that it's lowercase, and then, oh, this is really messed up. So these should be lowercase, and then practical should be in capital. I see here that the date is wrong. It should be going up here in parentheses. So that's definitely a mess. So I see another one here that I know is going to be wrong because, again, it's using Terry rather than using T. Now the date's in the proper place. This is good. And I have that same problem with capital letters and lowercase letters. And notice that this is not in italics. This is the title of the book, but it was not put in italics. This is the right order with having the publisher at the end. So let's look at these last 2. This one looks correct as far as the author, but I have a problem here because this is not in italics and instead it was underlined. We know that that's incorrect. I never went through anything being underlined. We have the publisher at the end. This one was done incorrectly. We need to move that date right there between the author and the title of the book. Let's look and see if C is the correct one. Indeed it is. Let's go through it. Last name, first initial, date, period, in italics. So this is one of those examples. We have a subtitle. Here's your colon. And then you have a capital P. So capitalize that letter that follows to make up your subtitle. And then we have the correct publisher information also. If you got that right off the bat, fantastic. Now let's make it a little bit more difficult. Let's look at a journal article. So we'll use the same kind of question and answer kind of format. We know that this one's incorrect because the initials were not used and the date is incorrect. And we're seeing quotation marks. What a mess. I'm not even going through the rest of that one. Let's go ahead and try to find something else where we see it's wrong. This is definitely wrong because we know that the authors should come first. The authors are way back here. They should come first. And instead we have the title of the article itself here. Let's not even look anymore at that. We can just tell it's also a mess. This one looks kind of funny. I've got my authors. Those look correct. Where's my date? I don't even see a date in here. Then I'm seeing the journal title. That's been formatted correctly, but it's in the wrong place. This is incorrect as far as the capitalizations. Whenever you have a DOI, you're going to go ahead and don't leave a lot of spaces. Just leave one space after that period and put your DOI here. You'll notice anytime that we use a DOI or a URL that we never put punctuation after it. That could be a problem for the computer if you're trying to get to it with a hyperlink, and so just do not use that. Also, DOIs, there's a preferred format for them, and that is that you use https://doi.org/ and then the number and letter combination for it. So which one do we think is going to be correct? Yes, you're right, it's B. So our authors look correct, 3 authors, date period. This is the article title. This is the journal title, what I would pull off the shelf in italics, volume, issue, page numbers, DOI. Now for a government document, and I'm going to walk you through this one and let you know how I would eliminate things. First of all, I'm going to look at abbreviations. Anytime that you have an author that has a name that could be abbreviated, you are not going to be using that as your reference. You're going to be using either the U.S. Geological Survey or United States Geological Survey, but you would not use USGS. That's a no-no right there. Let's go ahead and look at another one here. Let's say I used United States Geological Survey. I mentioned that would be okay. Why do I have a month here and a date? Because this happens to be a fact sheet that's updated every so often, and I want people to know which one I looked at. I did not look at the one from November of 2000. I looked at the one from May of 2000, and so somebody else could go ahead and look at that same one. But anytime that we have a date where we've got the month, we're going to have to put it in this format. The year first, comma, and then the month. We know that this one's incorrect, so I'm going to skip over that. Here we've got the USGS. We said no for that one. And this one says U.S. Geological Survey. That would be great. But now we've got the title of the report right here, and the date should have gone down here, and we know that's a mess. So let's take a look here at A, which we know by process of elimination is going to be the correct one. U.S. Geological Survey, date, the year first, comma, month. This is the title. It's in italics. This is also known by another name. So we're wanting to show that secondary name here in parentheses in regular font, period. We're going to end that element of the title, and then we're going to show where this was found. So we're guiding somebody else so that they could find that same information. Next one, this is a web document. I'm going to walk you through this one too. Thomas More, we know that's not going to work, and you never use somebody's professional credentials within a reference. So I'm going to skip by that one. Thomas More, we know that's incorrect. It should be initials here. And I can tell that this is incorrect too, because what comes next after the author is going to be my date. So let me take a look here. I'm going to look at this right here. Author looks correct, but my date is in the wrong place. So I know automatically that one is incorrect. So it looks like the one that should be correct is C, and we have the author correct. Remember, if we're going to use a specialized date, in this case, they gave us a particular date that it was updated. And so we're going to go ahead with the year first, comma, and then the month and day. Here is the title. It's in italics, ends with a period. And here's where somebody could go to actually find that. Something else to keep in mind. Typically, people will ask, should I have these as links or should I have these as regular text? They go to a website, which is best. And the rule of thumb is if you are going to go ahead and have one hyperlinked, you must have all of them hyperlinked within your references. You might also want to check with your professor. They may have a particular preference. I know of one professor that I've worked with who said, oh yes, he much prefers for them to be hyperlinked. It makes it easy for him to go back and look at what the students have used for their resources. You've done great with this, so let's look at the in-text citations. What they are, why to use them, when to use them, and how to use them. Like you've seen, we're using the author date citation system, the author's surname from the original work, the date of publication, only using the year, and if you have a quotation, include the page number. This allows people to easily go back to the references and look up that author and get the information to go back to that original source. In-text citations for one author would look like this. For two authors, using the ampersand between them, and three or more authors is going to look like this with the et al. Remember, there's the period because this is an abbreviation, and comma before the year. When are you going to use in-text citations? Anytime you've paraphrased, quoted, or otherwise borrowed information. The only exception to this is if you have something that is called common knowledge. So if I was to say the sky is blue or Washington, D.C. is the capital of the U.S., I do not have to find something that is going to tell me that. That's common knowledge. Everybody knows that. I don't have to verify where I got that fact. But otherwise, you do need to be showing where you got the information from. In-text citations, if you want a quick chart, paraphrase, author date, direct quotation, author date page. Oops, here's something new. A block quote is going to have 40 or more words. Do not use quotation marks around the block quote. I'm going to show you what it looks like in a minute. And it is indented 1/2 inch all the way down the side. You are going to show the author date, and because it's a direct quote, you're going to have the page number. Also, when you do a block quote, you're going to be showing the citation information after the quotation's final punctuation. So you would have the author date page in parentheses after the final punctuation, or if you've already used the author's name within the narrative and immediately after that you would have to have the date, then you would just in that case put the page number after the final punctuation, and there is no punctuation then after that. We'll take a look in just a second. How are you going to count block quotations? You can do it manually or go ahead, click on Review on a toolbar for MS Word and click on Word Count. Often with newer versions of Word, you're going to see this word count will also just be in the left-hand corner and you don't even have to go into the review. If it's 39 words, you just put it in the regular format. If it is 40 or more, a block quote. This is what it looks like. So you may actually have words going in, and this may be part of the same sentence. Here's my block. It's indented 1/2 inch. I've used some of the Latin terms here so that I could go ahead and make sure I had 40 or more. Ending punctuation, and now I have my author, my year, and my page number for somebody to refer back to. There are two ways that you can do things. One is using your author's name in the text. If you do that, you're immediately following it with the date. If you've got a direct quotation, it will be in quotation marks, and you're going to show within that sentence there, within the period, the location. Now, this happens to be a paragraph. This was from a website, and so there was no page number. This actually should be PARA. I will fix that on my next iteration. I'm counting down from the top of the page 6 paragraphs. In this one, the year is already given, so I don't have to put it after the author's name. A direct quotation because it's in quotation marks. Immediately after that, I'm putting the page number. Sometimes you have multiple authors that may be making claim of the same fact or facts, and so you would do this type of format. Notion that rain is wet has been clarified by several authors. For example, e.g., notice the periods, comma, that's one of those Latin abbreviations that I noted in the online resource guide. And then I'm showing the first author. Remember, it's not a direct quote, so all I need is the author's name and the year, a semicolon to separate authors, and then the next author, and my sentence with a period. Sometimes you will have what we call a secondary source. You've read something that somebody else talked about that they had put in their work. So if author A cites the work of author B in his work, you only show author A and their work in the references. You only read the work by author A. You did not directly read the work of author B, and so that's why you're only showing author A. Here's how it works in real life. Assume you read a work by Padrone, and they cited Rebar's diary, and you want to talk about my diary in the text of your paper. An in-text citation within this text would be talking about Rebar's diary, and remember you only read the work by Padrone, so you can only use that in the citation as cited in Padrone. And so this lets readers know what you're talking about, and then it lets you know where you got that information. You only read Padron's work. You can only cite that work, so you need to give credit for what they talked about that you are now talking about. For more examples of in-text citations and references, I refer you again back to the APA Bootcamp. Lots of information there, and that will get you in turn back to the apa.org site. They also have information on how to write in APA style when you're doing a reference, but information is missing. So maybe you're not seeing an author, or maybe there is no date that's actually shown on a web page. This is going to help you be able to figure out how to write your reference. There are additional resources. We have a citation libguide, so if you happen to need additional citation formats, you could go there. Citation tools libguide. This is going to give you some tools for keeping track of resources or keeping track of references. Zotero, Mendeley, OneNote, some other tools that are available are talked about there. And also the style manual that I mentioned you can borrow at the Boca site. It's the first floor lobby service desk, also available in Jupiter and HBOI, Harbor Branch. Again, ask a librarian, use it, it's free. Free is one of the best words. Chat is my favorite way to do things. Get help, you can go to our library's homepage, ask a librarian. We also offer free consultations, so if you want to sit down with me or somebody else, please take advantage of that. This will say when is the best time for you to meet and what's your topic, and we'll get you set up. Follow us on social media. Here is where you can go for the quiz. The recording is available also on our YouTube channel, and again, the APA Bootcamp guide. And I thank you for watching this video, and I hope you take the quiz. Please feel free to contact me if you have questions or I can be of any help. Go back and watch part 1 on formatting also.